Good afternoon. Welcome to the American Rescue Plan Act funding question and answer session for the Gallup Park Bridge replacement. We're going to get started with just a brief presentation, and then the majority of the meeting time will be for questions and discussion. So as we get started, just for the participants to know that their videos and microphones are currently disabled, there will be plenty of option to ask questions during the meeting, and you can do that by raising your hand to speak or by typing a question into the Q&A window. And that is better shown here on our technology overview slide. There's a raise hand feature as well as the comment bubbles for typing questions into the Q&A. For this afternoon's meeting, we just ask that we all make our best efforts to maintain a civilized conversation, that we not make any personal attacks or use any inappropriate language. A little bit of background about the American Rescue Plan Act funding will be covered over these next couple of slides. There was also a presentation on January 12th that covered in a little more detail some of this background information. So if you weren't able to join us for that meeting and would like some additional context, please make sure to reference that video recording. But for a basic introduction, I'll review this information here. The ARPA funding is federal local government bailout in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. The city of Ann Arbor received $24.2 million in ARPA funding, and that allocation was modeled on the community development block grant funding. The federal regulations do stipulate how the funding can be spent, and that is covered in more detail here. As you can see, these funding categories, there are 4 of them. They show the different sort of buckets that qualify eligible projects. So COVID-19 or negative economic impacts is one of the areas for funding, and that includes containing and mitigating COVID-19, behavioral healthcare needs, payroll and benefits for public safety, human services, and other impacted industries, rebuilding public sector capacity, and support to small businesses or others hardest hit within the community. Another category for the funding eligibility is premium pay for eligible workers. This can be used retroactively. It applies to employees who are deemed essential or those performing essential work. Third, the government services to the extent of the lost revenue is another criteria for eligible funding, and that amount is determined by a prescribed formula. It applies directly to city services that have been provided and could apply to cybersecurity or capital projects. And finally, the broadband infrastructure, water and sewer investments, and that could include building and upgrading facilities, distribution and storage, construction of publicly owned treatment infrastructure, and managing and treating stormwater, in addition to building additional broadband infrastructure. So these very detailed criteria are a main part of what staff considered in determining eligible projects. There's some other information to know about the funding, a couple of key points. The period covered for the funding is March 3rd of 2021 through December 31st of 2024. Costs can be incurred through December of 2024, but must be expended in full by December of 2026. There are some prohibited uses such as pension contributions and debt payments, and the money also cannot be used as non-federal match. Associated with this funding, there are significant reporting requirements, and an important thing to keep in mind is the temporary nature of these funds. So in selecting eligible projects, it's important not to create new work that would require an ongoing financial commitment, because this is a one-time allocation. With all of that in mind, Staff have identified eligible projects, and that's what we are discussing through these question and answer sessions. We're here today for the Gallup Park Bridge. As we mentioned, there are 13 eligible projects that have been identified, and the determination for those was made through the close review of those federal guidelines, also by looking at prior direction from City Council, and again, the very important criteria to ensure that the funding could be spent in full by the 2026 deadline. So hopefully that background information helped if you are unfamiliar with the funding. I'm now going to turn it over to Hillary Hansel, who will introduce the Gallup Park Bridge Replacement project. So over to you, Hillary.
Thanks, Kayla. Hi, everyone. I'm Hillary Hansel. I'm a park planner and landscape architect for the city. So just a brief overview of the project here. This project would replace the existing Gallup Park vehicle and pedestrian bridge with a new design that has expanded space for bicycles and pedestrians while still maintaining the single vehicle lane. A second phase of the project could include widening the adjacent border-to-border trail, adding advisory bike lanes to the park road, and shifting the parking off streets. The cost is estimated at $2.3 million for the bridge replacement alone, and approximately $6.8 million for the entire project. That's including the additional road and trail improvements. Any funds we receive must be spent on the bridge replacement first, and then additional ones could be applied to future phases. So that's a brief overview. I'm happy to take any questions if anyone has them right now, but I also have some additional slides that I can share and maybe talk through the project details a little bit more, if that's okay. So
yeah, Hillary, why don't you go ahead and share your additional slides, and if any participants have questions that you'd like to type into the Q&A at any time, please do. And please also raise your hand. We have a small group today, so we can make this pretty informal and allow questions as we go if you think of something that you'd like to ask about.
Great, awesome. Well, just to give everyone a little more background, so the bridge we're talking about is the one shown here. So it's the wooden one. It's the only vehicle bridge. There's also kind of sidewalks for pedestrians and bikes as well. And in recent years, you may have noticed we had some failure of the side handrails, basically caused for people climbing them to jump off into the river. Knowing that this bridge has reached the end of its useful life and the difficulty of making those repairs, we had to put up this temporary fencing. We know it's not the most aesthetically pleasing alternative. It's kind of a temporary solution to get us through until we're able to do this replacement. Just for your information, this bridge was originally built in the mid-70s, so we've definitely gotten our money's worth out of it. But again, it's gotten to the point where we're able to make some repairs to kind of get us through to the replacement, but it really needs to happen in the near term. And then I apologize, this image is a little fuzzy, but in looking at the bridge replacement, we also wanted to take a broader look because there was an opportunity in changing the bridge to make sure it would work with kind of the surrounding park infrastructure. So we took a look at the adjacent park road, the parking lots that are connected to the road, and then also the border-to-border trail, that runs right through the south end of the bridge. And so in this image, you can see this entire area kind of outlined in this red dashed line is an area that we looked at to study. So kind of as part of studying the bridge, we wanted to do a schematic master plan for the road and trail and parking as well in this area. And let's see here. Come on. So in doing that study, our first step was, community engagement. So talking to all of you, we did an online survey to get initial thoughts from people about what's working, what's not working, what ideas they have for improving everything. And then we used that feedback to kind of create a list of design criteria for what we want the new bridge to be. And we did this for the road and trail as well. So I'll walk through those portions also. So here, things we're looking for in the bridge, we heard from everyone that it's really important to keep the park-like character. So any opportunities to keep the wood, more natural elements, retaining that same charm and uniqueness of a park bridge. Also the scale and size of the bridge was important. In talking to transportation engineers, and park users, we thought that keeping the single vehicle lane was important for encouraging slower speeds and acting as a natural traffic calming mechanism. We also wanted to look to reduce congestion for non-motorized users. So that's a term for pedestrians, bicyclists, skateboarders, scooters, anyone not in a vehicle. So, is there opportunity to expand infrastructure for them as well? Also improving the experience for them, their experience of the park and being on the bridge. And then, bringing the bridge up to current standards. So increasing load capacity for emergency vehicle access, as well as actually construction vehicle access. So, with all these park elements that are only really accessible to the south of the park across this bridge, we do need to bring in, pretty heavy equipment on a regular basis. And then, as I mentioned, there's these, this proclivity of these bridge jumpers to climb up the railing. So looking for ways to deter that with railing redesign. And so here, just an image of what the bridge is in its current state. So a 12-foot wide single vehicle lane with 5-foot walks on either side. The existing bridge is all wood and timber construction. And we looked at many alternatives, but going through this process, the online survey, several public meetings, working with a steering committee, what was ultimately recommended as the new bridge design is this 12-foot vehicle lane, but expanded 10-foot shared use paths on either side. So these are additional space for pedestrians, bikes, really just additional space for people to wait on the bridge, to look out, to enjoy views, and still have room for people to maneuver past people. And it's a really scenic spot. I think it's a place that many people just enjoy in the experience of looking across the river from. We also kind of began to talk through materiality, what the bridge replacement might look like. And it'll probably be either a concrete or steel deck, just in needing to meet those structural load requirements. And from a maintenance standpoint, just the longevity, reduced maintenance impacts. But we looked for ways to still incorporate those natural materials. So looking for, is there opportunity to use wood as like a boardwalk material for the pedestrian, and bicycle shared use paths? Using wood elements for guardrails, and handrails to really just try and keep that rustic park-like character. And again, keeping that single vehicle lane also helps to keep the scale of the bridge, really more pedestrian in scale. We looked at some alternatives that would expand it to 2 vehicle lanes, and the feeling that we really heard from people is that it was just getting too big. It was getting away from the feeling of that quaint, charming park bridge into something that, really wasn't necessary for this park. And then starting to look at some of the, existing conflicts that, are important to consider in the bridge replacement and kind of the road and trail as well. There's really poor visibility on the south end. So the border to border trail in this yellow line comes along here and crosses right at the southern end of the bridge. So when you're crossing it, it's really difficult to see, people coming from either side. We also looked at the on-street parking can create a lot of conflicts with people pulling in and out, not always having great visibility for traffic on either end, really just causing a lot of vehicular congestion. Also just looking to improve the border-to-border trail experience, looking to create and formalize river access points. So here's kind of the proposed schematic level design. The bridge kind of having those expanded pedestrian and bicycle lanes. We look to pull the border trail further down to the south. So moving the crossing so there's more visibility, possibly making it a tabletop raised crossing to improve safety. And another big change was pulling parking off street. So we're a little constrained just with space in this area, but we thought that the safety improvements and reduction in congestion by having parking not interacting with the main road and the bicyclists and other users that use that road was really important. Also just looking to create more opportunities in several places for people to get down to the river level. So opportunities for people to exit the river on kayaks and tubes, but also just opportunities for people to walk down, touch the water, sit and enjoy views. And then in looking at the park road and trail, again, taking that input we'd gotten from the community and developing a list of criteria that we hope to accomplish. A big one, increasing the capacity of the border to border trail. It's so heavily used in this area, both by commuters, that are really cruising at pretty high speeds, as well as just the recreational users, families that are coming to the park. Looking to add trees, there's not much shade here along the path. Again, river access points, enhancing just the park-like experience. So, some of the magic of Gallup Park is lost in this area. It's not quite the high quality that other areas of the park are. Still wanting to promote traffic calming, including encouraging slower vehicle speeds. Looking to add some additional separation between the park road and the border to border trail. Right now, they can be pretty close together, and and I think it's not as great of an experience from the trail user standpoint. And then looking for opportunities to separate the high-speed commuter cyclists from those recreational trail users. So here's a section showing the existing conditions. So a 20-foot drive that accommodates vehicles in either direction, a gap of anywhere from around 4.5 feet to 12.5 feet between the road and the trail. And then the border to border trail in this segment is only about 8 feet wide, which is not even up to current trail standards. It was built in a time when Gallup Park was not as heavily used, and when the border to border trail wasn't as heavily used. And so the proposed recommended design, again, we looked at several options, but the one that ultimately came through was expanding the border to border trail to 12 feet wide. So, really 50% bigger than it is right now to accommodate that heavy use. Looking for opportunities to allow commuter cyclists to have kind of formalized space on the park road. So this is using something called advisory bike lanes. They've been applied in a few instances throughout the city, but it's essentially striping the bike lanes, but allowing for the street to be a shared space where cars and bikes both use the bike lanes and kind of merge and maneuver and share the space. It really just helps the bikes feel like, like it's some of their territory as well. And it's, an equal space for both users. And then looking to keep, a consistent buffer between the trail and road. So 10.5 feet, opportunities to add a bioswale for stormwater management, adding trees to provide shade for trail users. And so when we start to apply that to the plan, looking at how that'll work, certain areas that had a lot of congestion, such as the parking lot at the far east end over by the Universal Access Playground. We thought here there was an opportunity to pull the border to border trail that currently runs between the parking lot and the playground with a lot of conflicts there. We created kind of a bypass for trail users along the south side, and then an opportunity here to cross the park road and for those commuter cyclists to make a decision to go onto the park road, and trail users that want to stay on the border to border trail can kind of continue on. We looked for other spaces. Where can we add some additional parking? Parking is always, a tough thing it's always in short supply at Gallup, and there's not a lot of real estate to add additional. So, a few additional parking areas, looking for places to formalize those river access points. So this is kind of what that section condition looks like applied throughout. You can see that we're adding that additional green space buffer with trees as well. And then this is kind of an overview phasing plan. So just so everyone's aware, the bridge phase 1 is really the bridge itself and kind of this area highlighted in red, which is kind of the bridge approach. And then, anything additional for that second phase, so the park road and trail improvements, is kind of beyond that, this entire rest of it. And then, of course, the scope can always change kind of going through this process. Once we had these recommendations, we realized that this new park road condition and the changes to the parking really necessitate us looking a little bit more closely at redesigning the park entry. So that's something that we're currently finishing up designs for, but it's not included in this project at this moment. So I can leave this slide up. I think this is the last one. Sorry, that might have taken a little bit more time, but just wanted to kind of tell the story a little bit and see if anyone has any questions that I could help answer.
So I don't see any questions yet coming in through the Q&A window. I don't see any hand raises, but we're a small group. We've got 3 or 4 participants. If anyone wants to speak with Hillary, this is a great time to do that. If you have questions about this project, please chime in.
And I'm happy to scroll back to any images that someone would like to see again or talk in a little bit more detail.
I am going to actually, while we wait for folks to think of their questions that they like to ask. Are you now seeing my screen again? Okay, good. Switched over here because I'm going to cover just a little more about the decision process for all. So stepping back from this project specifically, but thinking about, again, the ARPA, American Rescue Plan Act funding more generally, a little information about where we are in the process. The projects have been identified. That happened beginning in September and October. Projects were refined in December and January. There are specific videos about each of the 13 projects. So Hillary did a good job today of adding extra detail about this one. This recording will also be posted to the project website, but you can view the videos for Gallup Park and all of the other eligible projects on the project website, a2gov.org/rescue funds. We are currently here at step 3, holding community conversations, having discussion, question and answer sessions about each individual project. And there will be an online survey that launches at the end of this month where we hope to gather community input and better understand community preferences about how the funding should be spent. Ultimately, City Council will make the decision with the budget allocation, and that is planned for March of 2022. So just coming up in a couple of months. And then projects, as we said earlier, will need to be implemented by 2026. The funds fully expended by 2026, as we covered that in the earlier slides. So that's the overview of the process. This is the schedule of question and answer sessions. Many of these have taken place already. We're here today, January 20th. The Gallup Park session. We do have one more later on today for universal basic income and coordinated funding support. We hope you'll tune into that if you are interested in those projects. And you can view the recordings for other question and answer sessions, though the January 13th sessions are already posted and the January 19th ones will be posted shortly, probably in the next day or 2. And I do see, so thank you for bearing with us through that overview of the process. And I'm gonna end my screen share now. And I see we have a question that has come in and we have a hand raise. So first we'll take this question from the window, the Q&A window. What peak traffic volume do you expect, and do you believe the one lane road with advisory bike lanes will be able to handle it, and why?
Gosh, that's a good question. Peak traffic volume. So I assume you're talking about vehicles. You know what, I'll say, I don't know that we've done any vehicle counts out there. So I guess we don't have data to support that, but I think just in talking to the Gallup livery facility manager and what she sees out there, both during weekdays and during busy weekends, the congestion is more focused on the parking lots and kind of the waiting and holding patterns for cars moving in and out of the parking lots. There might be a little bit of, waiting and pausing if there's other vehicles looking to cross the bridge. But I don't think that maintaining just the single lane across the bridge is going to be an impediment to vehicular travel. If anything, I think these changes by basically taking the parking off street will really help just traffic flow in general. But at the same time, just remembering that this is a park and, our goal here isn't to make, things as easy as vehicles to get through. We want to be conscientious about traffic speeds and, just keeping traffic as slow as possible to look out for the heavy pedestrian and bike use. So, I guess I don't have an exact answer for volume, but I think, the big benefit to the bridge redesign is that we'll be able to handle a lot more pedestrians and bikes going across there. So I hope that answers your question, but happy to elaborate if there's additional questions.
All right. Thank you, Ralph, for the question, and thank you, Hillary, for that reply. Ron, I see that you have your hand raised. You can unmute yourself and ask a question or share a comment.
Yeah, so I live just south of the park, a couple of miles, and we almost never drive there. It's very, we drive there, so we always come in without a car. And I run there all the time coming in from Getty's Road. It always bothers me that coming in from Getty's Road, I have to go down and cross in front of the bridge. And I didn't design that there was any change getting rid of that brick wall and allowing people to move what you're calling the sort of through side of the border to border trail on the south of the driveway.
Sure. Yeah, and I can share my screen and we can just be sure we're looking at the same part, or just to help everyone see the area you're talking about, because I'm pretty sure I know what you're referring to. So let's see.
I mean, it's not a dense neighborhood south of there, but I know quite a few people still come in there from Getty's.
Yeah, so you're talking about this little connection. It's an at-grade crossing of the railroad, and then you can kind of enter their park. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So I would say there's not a big change in kind of that access point. In looking at this, I think there were going to be some changes to those stone walls, probably to allow for this border to border trail crossing to shift further south from the bridge. So there would be some kind of minor configuration, but I would say the railroad is looking to turn these segments to higher speed at some point in the future. And so there's a lot of sensitivity about existing at-grade crossings. Basically, you can't add any existing at-grade crossings along the railroad anymore now. And so we're very protective of these crossings that we have. So, I wouldn't look to try and make changes to that access point specifically. If you had any impact, I don't know if you're talking at all about, the far side, outside the park and how it connects south of the railroad, or if you're really just looking for the actual
It's
park.
just the actual. So this moves the crossing of the road further south of the bridge, and I guess that's pretty good. So my next question then is, the bridge is $2.8 million. I think you said the whole thing is about $6.8 million. $4 million sounds like a
So
just to reconfigure
yeah.
the drive and the parking and the border to border trail. Is that really true?
It is, yeah. So the 2.3 million is for this area kind of outlined in red for the bridge, the crossing and the kind of the direct bridge approaches. I mean, I will say that cost is inclusive of design and engineering. So what's been done so far is kind of the community engagement and then the schematic, really high level design. But we'll need to hire, engineers to actually design the bridge, and do all of that. And then there's obviously the construction aspect. So that 2.3 million is kind of a full project cost. And I will say, bridges just in general are really, really big expenses, especially for the parks department. So that's something that we kind of struggle to fund just because of our limited resources.
And I think, Hillary, if I understood what Ron was getting to, and Ron, please chime in too, but I think you were highlighting that if the bridge is 2.3 million and the whole thing was 6 point something, is the question more about the explanation of how it costs 4 million or so for the other non-bridge features? Is that part of your
Correct.
question? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Why is it 4 million for the non-bridge features?
Yeah. So I guess, as part of this schematic master plan, our consulting team put together the cost estimate. So I would say construction costs in general have really increased over the last couple of years with all the impacts from the pandemic to supply chains, staffing. But these are costs that we see for, road and trail construction. And I will say, it probably doesn't look like as big of a change, just, glancing at this, but what's difficult to miss is there's a lot of construction based on pulling parking off the street. So we're really not just, repaving the existing park road. We're actually changing the park road alignment, and creating whole new parking lots, totally reconstructing the border to border trail. So again, instead of just repaving it with another layer of asphalt, it would be a full rebuild, kind of changing that whole alignment. So really, I think thinking about this as like new park infrastructure. So it's almost really a new road, a new trail, adding in all the landscaping, adding in these, these points of access, kind of formalizing points of access across here. And then again, being inclusive of, that detailed design engineering that we do need, consultants to hire out to do. So that's, it's a big number, I get that. But I think if you look at other projects throughout the city, road and trail projects, they're comparable costs. I know that I think there's another bike lane project that's also included in the ARP fund category. And I know that one's several $1 million just for, that bike lane infrastructure. But, if you'd like to dive into costs in any more detail, we do have the entire report that came out of this. So the schematic design plan report. And in that appendix is a detailed breakdown of all the costs. So if you want to kind of look into that further, that's available on the ARC website as well as the park planning website.
And that website, sorry, just for clarity, the a2gov.org/rescue funds. You can visit that webpage and you'll find the report that Hillary's referring to. But go ahead, Ron. And also I'll just mention if others have questions, just feel free to drop them into the Q&A or raise your hand so we know if there's a need to segue, but please continue, Ron, for now.
So I guess what I would have liked is have the non-bridge. So as somebody who doesn't drive there, non-bridge things being done, but I don't think you can do the non-bridge improvements without increasing the load capacity of the bridge, can you?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. In other improvements we've done, recently repaving other sections of the border to border trail, we really struggle with construction access for those big, heavy, vehicles that we need to bring in for that. But you're right, from a needs standpoint in the park, I mean, this bridge is really a piece of critical infrastructure because for those people that, aren't as fortunate to be able to be within walking and biking distance, being able to drive in, this is really your only access point, to this edge of the park. Really thinking about the universal access playground, people that might not be able to get there without a vehicle, it really provides that. It's a linchpin to access for this part of the park. And as well as, it's not just for vehicles. I think the bridge does allow, pedestrians and bicyclists and other people coming from the north end, maybe even, people coming from bus stops, the high school. So, it does provide connectivity as well. But I will say, right now, the funds will be directed towards the bridge itself, but, any funds that we receive from ARP would help, free up additional funding for the rest of the project. So, currently when we did this master plan, we didn't have any funding source identified for phase 2. So any of the park road and trail improvements, it was really done as like a big picture to make sure what we do at the bridge would match, future goals for this part of the park. and I will say, you know, from a funding standpoint, the park's capital improvement millage generates approximately $2 million annually. And that $2 million has to be spread across our whole park system. So we have, you know, over 160 park properties, and there's needs throughout the entire park system. So in looking at, you know, for funding sources, you know, we look for grants and other things, but you know, the ARP funds provide a big opportunity to invest in critical park infrastructure and hopefully free up, you know, existing park funds for additional phases of the project and other needs kind of throughout the park system. So I don't know, does that help, Ron? Kind of, you know, help, you know, show you like kind of our funding priorities, I guess.
Yeah, it was very enlightening. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for the question.
All right, great. Thank you, Ron, for the thoughtful discussion and the good questions. If there are any other questions from participants, please do not hesitate. All right, I see Ralph has your hand up. Ralph, you'll be able to unmute yourself now.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yep, sure can.
I wanted to just follow up because I wasn't, it's been a while since I've been here, so it's hard for me to visualize what's currently out there. And I saw one screen when you're screen sharing that showed what I thought was the advisory bike lane. I wasn't talking about the bridge part. I got that's one lane, and you have you're thinking of widening those parts, but there the bikes and people are separated from the one lane, and the cars can't really go into where that, at least I thought I saw a rail there. So what I was talking about is the part where there's part of the road and you've got, I'm confused about where that is. And you had also mentioned that there's a potential conflicts between recreational people and more of the commuter bikes. And I'm assuming that where you have the advisory bike lanes that you're showing on the screen now, that's part of a road within the park, and that's where the commuter bike people would typically ride. Am I right about that? Am I thinking correctly?
You are, yeah, and I can kind of talk through this and then
that's the
show you
part
how this applies to plan.
That's the part that I was talking about, and I wasn't really talking about heavy vehicle traffic. What I'm concerned about is the situation where you've got just a couple of cars and a whole bunch of bikes. And the cars, at least for some people, you know, if you're in a park and you're driving a car, you're looking around, you're not necessarily really focused like you would be in a city situation on what you need to be focused on. And if there's a whole bunch of bikes whizzing by you and you see another car, and your immediate instinct is, well, I got to get in the bike lane here to get out so that we can pass. If you've got a high volume of bicycles going fast, we're not talking about recreational bikers. We're talking about bikes that are going by 15, 20 miles an hour. And I'm just curious whether that's been, I'm not suggesting that that's a giant problem. I'm curious about whether that's been thought of as a problem.
Yeah, that's a great point. So I see what you're talking about. It just, you know, if there's a high volume of, you know, fast moving bicycles in the road, and how do the drivers, you know, navigate that in kind of this shared space scenario that's not typical. So some of the other kind of during the design process, some of the other things we looked at were, you know, actually keeping 2 vehicle lanes and then adding, you know, separate bike lanes. We also looked at what they call a cyclotrack. So, you know, kind of separated bike lanes off to the side, you know, kind of tacked onto the road, but that, you know, would be totally separated.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's a little difficult to describe it. And I think some of the reasons why we came back to this is that the big driving force to get to this solution were kind of twofold. One is that we are very space constrained in this part of the park. So you see the railroad fence here and then the
Sure.
river here. We only have so much real estate. So when we started looking at, expanding the park road to a larger width to accommodate all of those, we really lost just park space, green space. And we started to feel like, that it adds additional costs, as we were just talking about, it's over $4 million for just these improvements. And, significantly expanding the road and bike lanes just adds to that cost. And you also lose that, the nice soft green space being through here. We also talked about, there's certain times on weekends and holidays where this road is jammed. But, on your typical weekdays, we didn't necessarily need that high volume of traffic because it is a park road. And so we came back to this solution because we were like, this is really how the park road functions informally now. Informally, we're not changing the width. Like this is really, I guess it would actually be 2 feet wider than the current width of the park road. But we're really not changing and expanding that kind of impervious surface, that paved surface. What we're really doing is kind of giving bikes a little bit more sense of their right to be in that space.
So right now you've got essentially the same space, but it's more informal. And cars still
Correct,
have to
yeah.
navigate that same kind of space and deal with whatever bikes are there. The point that you made, I think, is a good one, that if the commuter bikes are probably more on the weekdays and the cars are more on the weekends. Am I thinking right about that?
Mhm.
That would mean,
Yeah, I
that-
mean,
and that would sort of solve that problem on its own just by the timing.
and I think that helps a little bit with, there's low traffic volumes probably in those peak travel times in the park. There'll probably be pinch points still on those busy weekends because, even if people are using the park for recreational uses and not commuter uses, sometimes the border to border trail still gets so congested that people who are really out there to, to bike quickly and maybe to get exercise, really, dedicated cyclists might still choose to go in the road space. I think what it does also is it's a visual reminder by having that striping for cars to be like, oh, there's bikes in here, we have to be aware of that, navigate that. I think you're right that we've talked through, there'll have to be some sort of, education. So thinking about signs, thinking about, ways to tell people how to kind of navigate this space. Another thing we kind of liked about it is that by adding the striping, it kind of visually decreases the size of the road, and it's kind of like a visual traffic calming aspect. So as a driver, you kind of feel like it's a little bit tighter and that you might have to just go a little bit slower. Whereas right now, the park road, when there's not a lot of traffic, can feel pretty wide. So I hope that helps kind of,
Yeah.
I think there's no perfect solution. And if money were no option, if we had tons more space, then maybe we would have ended up with a different solution. But kind of given those constraints, this was the solution that was recommended out of that study.
Yeah, and it makes a lot of sense to me to save the green space there. I mean, after all, that's the whole point. It's a park. So that's a good explanation. I get it, I think.
Great,
And I think,
great.
Hillary, is your next slide, does that I think that Ralph originally, one of the things he had asked was a good question about like, where are these advisory bike lanes being shown within the park? And I thought you did, there was this image on screen briefly that looked like it showed, yeah, okay, I can see the advisory bike lanes there coming off of that parking lot area. So that maybe you could talk a little more about like where these would exist. Is it all of the park road throughout?
Yeah, so I think we would kind of have them throughout. So, this portion being on the far east end where the park road ends in this parking lot would kind of be where to begin. And like I kind of mentioned before, right now, like this trail does not exist down here. What exists is the border to border trail. It comes up here, runs directly between the parking lot and the playground, which there's just tons of people kind of, trying to get across here. So it's not the best place for a busy trail. So what we would do is actually create a trail, kind of reroute the border to border trail on the south end and kind of create this bypass. And then, some users users who want to access the playground, this trail will still exist up here. But, if you're really cruising and don't want to get into that kind of more congested area, you can kind of come along the south end, and then you can choose here whether you'd want to jump on, that advisory bike lane portion in the park road, or whether you just continue to stay in the separate trail, on the border to border trail. And so, this is kind of a snapshot, a little zoomed in on, what the park road would look like kind of throughout. So we would anticipate having, those bike lanes kind of all throughout, the rest of the park road.
Great.
And we've added, we took parking off street in most locations, but we did find a couple opportunities, to squeeze in a little bit more parking, just knowing that that's always in such short supply. So you'll see here, the parking spaces are actually oriented as on-street parking, kind of parallel parking, rather than the pull in. And that's just safer from a visibility standpoint, to making sure that you can see cyclists, and that, when you're backing out, you can use your side view mirrors. And so it's a safer condition, just for dealing with the heavy cyclist use. So hopefully that helps a little bit. Trying to see my
Thanks,
screen.
Hillary. Yeah, I think that was helpful to show a little more about where those advisory bike lanes would be. And in the discussion, and we were talking about how the road is currently used and how it might be used by different types of modes of transportation. Ron contributed a comment in the Q&A window who said, I usually run in the road because of the strollers and dogs in the trail. So it's bikes, cars, and runners now sharing the road. So thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess I'd also say, knowing that, even beyond the commuter cyclists, like, just all the users, the other users, pedestrians, runners, increasing that border to border trail by 50% will create a lot more capacity there as well. So you think about 8 feet now going to 12 feet, it'll feel a lot more accommodating for runners and pedestrians. And, I know from being out there, sometimes there'll be a group of strollers or group of people, and there's not really a lot of room to navigate around that. And so, I think you'll just see increased capacity in both places, more capacity on the trail itself, hopefully some more, capacity and efficiencies along the park road as well.
Wonderful. Great. Thank you, Hillary.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't see any new questions or any hands raised. You are always welcome to also follow up by email. The project website, a2gov.org/rescue funds, does have my email address, and I can forward any communications along to Hillary if you have other questions that you think of about this project. And feel free to reach out to me with any questions about the ARPA funding process. With that, if there aren't any further questions, then I just want to thank all of our participants for their time and their interest. And we hope that you will follow along with this discussion as it continues. As I mentioned earlier, there is still the online survey that's coming at the end of the month. If you go to the webpage and subscribe to receive email updates, we'll make sure that you're on the email list to get notified once that's posted. And we thank you for your participation.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Thanks for your interest in the project and for the great questions. It was, helpful to kind of talk through the project a bit more, so I appreciate it.
All right, thank you for your time.